So reading Leviticus had me really wondering, who is Molech and why would God tell Moses not to sacrifice their children to that deity? And he says it by that they're passing their children through the fire. It really rattled my brain as to why are you doing that? You know? So I know that Molech worship wasn't just a Canaanite, I think that's what they call it, practice. They would literally take their babies, put it in there, and just burn them up. And I was wondering, while I was doing my research, was Molech actually a god, or was it a way to honor Baal? It's just so extreme to me that they would sacrifice their children just for financial prosperity, which we all know that these were lies. In the video that I actually watched says that the early Yahweh followers saw, them sacrificing to their God, and they thought this was something that Yahweh would have wanted, that Jesus, God, would have wanted. And of course, God had to tell them multiple times not to do it. And I literally can't wrap my head around that. Like, they were playing the drums so loudly to where they couldn't hear their children screaming, and it was just it's a little appalling to really think about it. And a lot of the Old Testament always makes me look back. So this is a series that I actually have on my channel called Old Testament Drama that I would love to really dissect. So they would heat up these bronze statues and burn their children. In another verse, it says, if the people of the land should ever tolerate that man when they give any of their children as a burnt offering to Molech, and fail to put him to death as the law required. So God was actually requiring the people that did it, to be also put to death. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. So as I continued, to study and to read, I came across a very interesting video that I would like to plug in. I would love to hear your thoughts about it in the descriptions, if after you watch it, to let me know if you still think Molech is a god.
Almost a century ago now, a German biblical scholar named Otto Eisfeld, who's actually still worth reading. He's a really smart guy. He wrote a little tiny book. The German title could be roughly translated Molech in Phoenician, and in the Hebrew Bible, the end of the god Molech. And at this time, there were excavations going on in the North African Punic, and Punic just means Phoenicians that don't live in Phoenicia. They went out into the Mediterranean, they set up colonies, and then all of a sudden they're excavating Carthage, where these Punic colonists are living, and they're finding inscriptions. And the inscriptions seem to be talking about child sacrifice. And they call the sacrifice a Molech. It's a Molech sacrifice. It's the name of a sacrifice. And at the time, Eisfeld only had a handful of these inscriptions. Since then, we have quite a few more. And Eisfeld said, wait a second, Molech, child sacrifice. In the Hebrew Bible, we also have Molech. Are passed over by fire, to a god Molech, but as a Molech sacrifice. He went further and said, well, if they're sacrificing them as Molech sacrifices, then, okay, who's the god that's getting them? And Eisfeld said, well, as far as we can tell, by far the most popular deity in ancient Israel was Yahweh. So I suggest that probably during the reign of Ahaz, or Ahaz, depending on how you pronounce it, he saw his Phoenician neighbors that had these Molech sacrifices that probably had something to do with vows. He decided to imitate his northern, probably more prestigious neighbors, There's other evidence that Ahaz was interested in imitating his neighbors and brought these sacrifices into the Jerusalem cult, and probably thought he was being a good Yahwist doing it. To be clear, the Hebrew Bible makes abundantly clear, maybe with minor exceptions, but even then it's controversial, these are not good. It never says that in the Hebrew Bible that you ought to be making these offerings to Yahweh. These sacrifices are said to have taken place in the Hinnom Valley, which would have been in not quite spitting distance, but definitely eyeshot of the Jerusalem temple, where Yahweh's shrine was. So Eisfeld said, no, they're not sacrificed to a god Molech, but they were being sacrificed as Molech offerings to Yahweh. All that to say, I think Molech was a type of offering, not a deity. I think that they were offered probably during the reigns of Ahaz, and Manasseh. Not a lot of information about whether they continued to be offered between the two, especially during the reign of good King Hezekiah. To me, I trust the biblical testimony on that it looks like Josiah got rid of them. But there was some memory that for a century or so, these types of offerings took place just down the hill, literally, from the Jerusalem temple.
With hearing all of that and also finding out that in North Africa, Molech was renamed to Kratos, and we all know that Kratos ate his children, it kind of seems like Molech was probably more than just a statue, maybe also a god as well. Because we read in Ezekiel 24:8 that it may cause wrath to come up and take vengeance. I have put her blood, guilt of her children sacrificed to Molech on the bare rock, that it may not be covered. You know, for her sacrificing it to, like, I understand translation gets changed, but still they're sacrificing to this deity. You know, reading other scriptures, it says that he made his son pass through the fire and burn him as an offering to Molech. He practiced witchcraft and divination and dealt with mediums and soothsayers. He did great evil in the sight of the Lord and provoked the Lord's anger. 2 Kings 21:6. So it does. It could be, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still an idol. This big bronze statue is an idol. Even in Jeremiah, they built the high places for worship of Baal. So maybe it was Baal to make their sons and their daughters pass through the fire to worship and honor Molech. So I'm thinking that it was maybe a little bit of both, you know, and so what? It was still a horrid idea, you know. We don't need to spend so much time, you know, debating on whether or not. We just know that we are not supposed to burn our children alive, and whenever we do that, I'm guessing it is a sacrifice to Molech. That's my big guess. So that's really all I have to say on the matter right now. When I find some more Old Testament drama, I will definitely let you guys know. Minty Realities will come back with more, because there is so much more I want to get into. Bye.